Well, we've got a blockbuster tonight on the situation with North Korea. The Washington Post reporting that several key officials in South Korea blame National Security Advisor John Bolton for problems ahead of what was meant to be, or should still be, a historic summit. Now, this report on the eve of a visit by South Korea's president to the White House. Want to discuss it now with Kayleigh McEnany, RNC spokeswoman, and Rebecca Grant, former Secretary of the Air Force official. Kayleigh, of course, we know a lot of folks joined President Trump's administration. They hit the ground running with enthusiasm. It felt like even President Trump tried to reassure Kim Jong-un on Friday in one of his gaggles with reporters that he would be safe. So was Bolton being too aggressive, or was that, or where does the administration stand right now with this?
Yeah, well, I don't always trust the reporting of the Washington Post, and I don't think that this is John Bolton's fault. We know that the North Koreans are not always a good faith negotiating partner. John Bolton might be playing the role of bad cop, President Trump playing the role of good cop. A lot of times there's a lot more to the public statements coming out of the administration than just taking them at face value. There's a broader strategy, and the statements are a means to pursue a greater end. So ultimately, I think we get to the meeting. I don't think this was John Bolton's doing. I think it's the fact that we have a negotiating partner who has a history of negotiating in bad faith.
But I will say, Rebecca, we did announce that we were going to suspend a scheduled test. I think it was a B-52 test in coordination with South Korea. Was that sort of an olive branch to reset this whole thing and get it back on track?
I see our military exercises going forward. Don't forget, Charles, the U.S.-South Korea war games are on full, and we have, for the first time, we have 8 F-22 stealth fighters there. I think that has rattled the North Koreans. That's when their rhetoric started, was during the war games, and that's all they can do. They can only squawk. They aren't testing missiles.
Right.
And I fully expect this summit to be on, and I expect to see Kim Jong-un in Singapore ready to negotiate seriously.
Well, let me ask you about Pompeo, because big news today, him cracking down on Iran. Of course, saying that there is a way for us to go back into a deal with them, but it would look substantially different. What are your thoughts, Rebecca?
Very different. Pompeo laid out the dirty dozen of behaviors that Iran has to change. Everything from stopping their program, stopping the ballistic missiles, and most of all, stopping their military adventures in the Middle East. So again, the bottom line here is, Charles, we cannot get out of Syria.
What would Iran get in return for doing that?
Right. Well, there's going to be a pile of sanctions, and these sanctions will really, really hurt. So the idea is that if they do this, then the sanctions will ease off, right, and Iran can go forward because they have economic problems. But we can't get out of that region until we have Iran bottled up.
Kayleigh, I want to ask you about Gina Haspel, now officially the first woman to head the CIA with very little fanfare from the mainstream media.
Very little fanfare because she has an R at the end of her name. She was appointed by a Republican administration, and in particular by President Donald Trump. So any woman who achieves that is affiliated with this administration will be neglected and looked away from by the mainstream media. We see it with Sarah Sanders, with Kellyanne, these extraordinary women who are not given the credit they deserve. Gina Haspel is a patriot. She served the CIA in a career capacity for 3 decades. She should be celebrated by the mainstream media, the first female CIA director. But instead, she's torn down because of her affiliation with this president. I
got to tell you, I agree 1,000%. She is the personification of the American dream. Hard work, grit, determination. Ladies, thank you both very much.
Thank you, Charles.